Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. To follow us on Instagram, go to No Name Music Cast Podcast. To send us an email, it's nonamemusiccast@gmail.com. And to visit our website, go to nonamemusiccast.com. Now, on with the show. Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here we are recording on a Sunday, stockpiling episodes for you because we're going to take a little bit of a break in a week or so's time. So here we are making sure that your service is I can't even say it, uninterrupted. Crikey O'Reilly, talking is hard.
You know, the thing is, Tim can't say it. Don't even let Joy try because it's out the window. Words are something for me. It's fine. So with that being said, Tim, would you like to start us off with your music news?
Yes, absolutely. So this is something that came out a day or so ago, in fact.
Right.
Apparently, Freddie Mercury had a secret daughter, according to a new biography.
I saw that. I did see this.
Yeah, apparently had a relationship with this secret daughter until his death in 1991. There's a 48-year-old woman who's only known as B, the letter B. Apparently works in the medical field somewhere in Europe, and shared her story with a rock biographer for a new book that's called Love, Freddie. And apparently had some relationship with somebody, and this daughter appeared. And there you go. Apparently, there's a Freddie Mercury daughter out there in the wild.
I mean, can't say I'm surprised.
I mean, you're rock stars on the road. I mean, unattached.
I'm really surprised, Tim. It's not that weird. The other thing is one thing that I will say is that, we were talking last week, but you guys don't know what time frame this is. We were discussing the Foo Fighters thing. The Foo Fighters, he's actively in a relationship, right, Tim? He's married and there's everything. Freddie Mercury was kind of a free spirit.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It doesn't grind at my gears the way the other one does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't judge how people live their lives and how they have their relationships. Some people have open marriages. Some people say, well, you're on tour and you can do what you like. And that's fine.
That's cool with me too. But I just didn't get that that's what Dave Grohl and his wife had.
Certainly what I've read doesn't suggest that is the case.
Yeah, and the thing about me is I've said forever, and Tim will agree with me because I've said this, from the wife's perspective, it would just be embarrassing for that to be the headline, regardless of the moral side of it. Does that make sense, Tim? When you're in the people's eyes, you just have to kind of be more cognitive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what's going on in this Foo Fighters is they're going to get Shane Hawkins, which is Taylor Hawkins' son, to drum. And then what's going to happen is that all of that kind of bad will against Dave's going to evaporate because they'll go, oh, wow, look at that. They got Taylor's son playing drums now. And that's what I think is being engineered.
I think so, too, because I said it and I saw Tim's eyes and he was like, yeah, I think you're right. So you guys couldn't see it, but I think he knew that we were on the same page with that one. And I was just it kind of goes back to what I'm saying, though. I don't think that's fair, though, because I can't help it that I'm not the child of the guy who died. You know what I mean, Tim, as your drummer?
Absolutely.
It's just don't hire the other guy first.
Yeah, 100%.
It's that bad? I don't know. It just makes me feel bad because then Tim will tell you that's because they don't have an HR department and no one cares. It's a bunch of white men with egos. Don't cover me, internet, but it's true. Continue. It's statistically, factually true. Everyone in that bitch. What I just said. Am I wrong, Tim?
No, I think you're correct, Joy.
Okay. We'll take that with a grain of salt. All right. Well, did you have anything else you'd like to tell the people?
No, that is the only music news item that I have at this juncture. Though I believe you have some music news items too.
I do. So this Memorial Day weekend, which you guys won't see for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 7 weeks, I don't know. I have zero concept of how that works. Tim pushes the button. Joy's just here for the fanfare, and that's how it works.
Yes.
And I pay the $16 a month or whatever. Tim is very cheap, y'all. You pay him $16 a month, and he'll do all the editing skills you need.
I will edit the podcast. I will make it into videos and put it on Instagram. I'll have them all lined up so they will post. I'll take care of that.
I think it's because he secretly enjoys my being near him. What is it? The word I'm looking for, Tim? When someone is with you. Well, he enjoys nothing because there's a word there that I forgot.
Joy, I enjoy your company. I was about to say, enjoys your company, but I didn't know that's where you was going with that.
Gonna die. Everybody in the podcast everybody listening is like, company, Tim? Tim, you sure? Well, apparently he doesn't.
That's what I thought. I didn't think it was anything as simple as that.
That's the funniest thing. Well, if you work with me, you know that everything I say is like a maze, and Tim's constantly trying to figure out where I'm going with things. So take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes I don't even know where I'm going with it. It gets lost in the middle. All right. With that being said, so the 2025 American Music Awards is coming up. They have announced like who's going to host, who's going to be this, who's going to do that. So I just thought we'd spend a little bit of time talking about this. So first of all, the host is Jennifer Lopez, and she's apparently going to grace the stage with a performance, which she's had a weird year. A lot of people don't care for some things that happen with her. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter to me. I feel like she's just one of those people, but she's kind of like, you love her or you hate her. With that being said, they are going to do the 2025 Icon Award recipient, which is Janet Jackson. Love it. Lifetime Achievement Award, Rod Stewart. We love that. It says also Benson Boone, who I don't know who is, Blake Shelton, kind of know who that is, Renee Rapp, and more. I don't know what that means. Kendrick Lamar leads the 2025 nominations with Tim, followed closely by Post Malone, Billie Eilish, Chappell Rowan, and Shabuzi. It is going to happen.
What was that last name?
Shabuzi. Which is really interesting to me, Tim, because I think that's going to come full circle for you, and I will explain as so there's this song that's out right now. It's someone show me a double shot of whiskey. Me and Jack Daniels got a history. Blah blah blah. Right? Okay. It is fodder for everybody that you play at the Moose Lounge. So I tell you, in 2 years, Tim, you're going to be playing Shabuzi.
Shabuzi sounds like a drink or a brand of shampoo.
That's the point. It's his whole brand is about drinking. Like, let me tell you, hold on. Let me read you this lyrics. I'm not crazy, Tim. He has a song right now. It's called Shabuzi, a bar song, parenthesis, tipsy, on parenthesis. Okay, and I know this song, sadly, because I have to listen to the radio with my husband who doesn't. So anyway, someone pour me up a double shot of whiskey. You know me and Jack Daniel got a history. There's a party downtown on Fifth Street. Everybody at the bar getting tipsy. Now, the entire chorus is everybody in the bar getting tipsy. There's only 2 lines to the chorus. I've been boozy since I left. I ain't changing for a check. To my mama, I forgot. Woke up drunk at 10 a.m. And me and my husband have had this conversation, Tim. I have drunk a lot, especially in my early 20s. And I have woke up drunk before, but at 10 a.m., that creates, I don't know, is that what the Europeans do? I don't know, Tim, because like that's a lot.
Well, it depends how late you was drinking and how long you slept.
But even then, like, I think at the latest, I cut the, you know what I mean, Tim? 1 a.m., 2 a.m. If the alcohol is so intense in your body that you're still drunk at 10 a.m. and think, well, I'm just going to do it again. By the way, that's the next line. Like, it goes straight into, let's just start drinking at 10 a.m. That seems intense.
Yeah, but that person probably didn't write that song. There was a team of songwriters sitting around going, let's make a drinking anthem.
But with that being said, the name Shabuzi, you were right on the money. And I'm telling you, give it 2 to 3 years, Tim. You could be playing that guitar at the Moose Lodge. You could be playing a Shabuzi song. Because what it is he's tapping into that weird, You know what I'm saying? You get it.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
tapping into that culture. So that's who that is. But anyway, so that's happening on Memorial. Oh, wait. No. It's not happening on Memorial Day. May 26, 2025 at 8 p.m. So we are looking at tomorrow, which is technically Memorial Day. Okay, I lied. It is on Memorial
There we
Day.
are. Well, I'll be honest with you, Joy. I will not be watching that because it's full of people I've never heard of.
But what I might do is I may tune in to see. I like to watch I might watch the Janet Jackson segment. Does that make sense, Tim? Like I'll watch that stuff, but I don't care about the rest. Care less.
I would imagine the bits that you want to see will be on YouTube.
Exactly. You are correct, sir. All right. So I have a very interesting episode for us, Tim, and I will skip one of these people. We will talk about them at the beginning of the episode, but this has been an ongoing thing me and Tim have spoke about on this podcast, so I do not think it deserves like we just don't need to beat it into these people's head. So we are doing an episode about bands that have changed singers over the years. Obviously, Tim has talked very heavily about Van Halen.
Yes.
David Lee Roth versus Sammy Hagar and where he stands on that. Now, I will say what we're going to do is I have literally a list of 15, subtract Van Halen, so 14, because I want to take those out and just put that out at the jump. Ironically, I was going to use the song Jump, but that wasn't on purpose when I said that. But with that being said, Tim is very candid on this podcast about where he stands versus the David Lee Roth and the Sammy Hagar debate.
Yes. Well, I can tell you, Van Halen has had 4 lead singers.
Okay, well.
So they had Diamond David Lee Roth. They had Sammy Hagar.
Y'all
There was a bit in the
nerd.
There was a bit in the middle where they had Gary Sharon, the guy from Extreme. They did an album called Van Halen 3, and they did a world tour. And then when Gary Sharon left, before Dave came back, they auditioned and told a guy called Mitch Malloy that he had the lead singer job. And in the end, it just didn't work out.
Okay, well, here's my thing. Doing a podcast with Tim is like doing a podcast with the nerd who raises his hand to correct the teacher. Okay, official singers. Dang, Tim, you had to add all that in. I will say, though, the 2 songs I picked, and I have a very funny memory about one of these, so I do want to start with that one, and then we'll get into some more detailed things, was David Lee Roth, Jump. I don't care what anybody says. Jump is one of the best songs. And I told you my favorite thing about that song is when they did the Glee episode where they were advertising for mattresses. And they did the part where they were jumping on all the mattresses. And then they got in trouble because they weren't supposed to like, promote a company. And they lost all their money. Okay, well, Tim, I mean, how do you feel about David Lee Roth Jump? I love that song. I don't care what anybody says.
I mean, Jump is a classic song. It's from the album 1984. It's a song that most people who don't know much about Van Halen would probably know the song Jump.
Yes, absolutely.
For me, there are other Van Halen David Lee Roth era songs that I'd probably prefer. I'd probably go with Hot for Teacher over Jump, maybe Unchained.
I would prefer Unchained. I feel like a Hot for Teacher has come up a lot on this podcast, so I agree with you on that.
Yeah, Hot for Teacher is such a good song.
It is, and the video and all the lore around it is amazing.
Yeah, also Mean Streets is another great David Lee Roth era song.
All right, I agree with you. But if we're going to go over to the Sammy Hagar world, which we've talked about much on this podcast, I have to pick Why Can't This Be Love?
Yes. Now, this is probably the Van Halen song that your casual Van Hagar fan
really
would know
good,
about.
Tim. I try to avoid the obvious ones, but Why Can't This Be Love? It's really good, Tim.
So I can tell you a story about that. They were interviewed actually on Howard Stern a few years ago. So Sammy Hagar and Michael Anthony. And they'd made the album 5150, which is the first album with Sammy Hagar. It hadn't been released yet. And the Warner Brothers record executives were coming into the studio to see how they were doing. Mm-hmm. And they played them Why Can't This Be Love? And apparently the Warner Brothers record exec looked to Eddie, looked to Sammy, and he says, I can smell money.
I mean, how could you not? Like, it just something about it. I just have this thing, and I've never been in a record, obviously, because, like, as Sue and me have talked about, we're not, like, making all the money. But I can imagine when you know, Tim, like you can hear it and you just know that is a hit. We
Yeah.
have this, money's coming in the door. Like, I just can't think that you just don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, again, from 5150, probably not my favorite track. You've got Summer Nights, you've got Dreams.
Dreams is a great one, too, for those who've never listened to it.
But my favorite Van Hagar album is For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, Pound Cake, Judgment Day, Right Now, Top of the World,
That's why I had to
Pleasure
start at the
Dome.
beginning, guys. There's a lot of thoughts there from Tim on this one. So with that, we're going to shift into Joy's version of Van Halen, which is AC/DC, which I have so many thoughts about.
Yes.
So for those who don't know, the original singer was Bon Scott.
Yep.
And then we moved into Brian Johnson. Now, I think they were commercially successful with both artists, and really most of their music that people know are coming from Brian Johnson. That's just the truth. Now, I controversially don't have a preference. I think it depends on the song, Tim. Is that weird?
No, and I would probably join you in that thought because
Okay, good.
I think the difference, like with Van Halen, you had, Bad Blood and then people left. The thing is with AC/DC, Bon died. So there was no going back to Bon. So
What could we do?
Yeah, so Brian comes along. Now, the interesting thing is that Bon, they were kind of big AC/DC, especially
Yeah.
especially probably more in Australia than they were in the UK or the US. But what happens is Bon dies, and then within 7 months or 8 months, they write and record Back in Black, which is probably the greatest rock album of all time.
Yes.
And then it propelled them into superstardom.
It's just a weird set of events. And, like, what are you going to do? He died, like Tim said. Now, I am a huge fan of Razor's Edge. I think Razor's Edge is a very underrated album. But that's a personal preference thing. And nobody would probably screaming at me would say, what are you you really think Razor's Edge better than Highway to Hell, Back to Black, Power Up? You know what I mean, Tim? Like, but for me personally, Thunderstruck, I love it. I love the Bon Scott age of Thunderstruck. I think it's amazing. I would put I literally have, and it is ingrained in my brain, Tim, that the AC/DC silver with the red with the cutout. Like,
Yep.
the Razor's Edge is the, controversially, it for me is like it just says AC/DC.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I mean, Thunderstruck is such a good song. It really is. But then again, you say you go back into the Bon era.
Yep.
Probably my favorite AC/DC song of all time is A Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll. In fact, I listened to that yesterday.
I mean, whole lot of Rosie, Tim. Like, we
mean,
could go on
Rosie.
for days.
Yeah, Rosie's great. But I mean, A Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll is my favorite AC/DC
I know,
song.
and I've now caught myself saying, I don't know what it was. Literally, I was just in the wild and something come up about like an artist or something. I went, well, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. And then I realized I wasn't on the podcast, so I don't know if everybody got that joke.
I know
That happened in real time.
Yeah, and you have to listen to what Bon taught us. If you want to be a star of stage and screen, look out, it's rough and mean.
I know, but I will say I am a little bit of a sucker from the early Bon Scott. But then when you get into the Brian Johnson, you really get into the meat of it, right? Like, you just have to, like...
And plus, of course, Brian's career is significantly longer than Bon's career. So
Because
there's
unfortunately he
more
passed
of
away.
it.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
but,
hard.
for a lot of people, they would only recognize Brian as being the singer of AC/DC because of his longevity.
But also, he did a really good job physically, like with the little hat. You know what I mean? Like the outfits, all of it. Tim, it made a difference.
Oh, yeah,
And-
he had a look. He's got the voice. Now he is AC/DC. And, if Bon had have lived, I don't know whether they would have had the same superstardom.
It's hard to say. Like, it's really hit or miss, and that's not to insult him. But Tim, money talks. On the Razor's Edge. I don't care what anybody says. Tim will say it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. But, like, Money Talks has to play, like, what, tandem with it? Like, I can't.
I mean, every AC/DC album basically sounds the same. That said, every AC/DC
The
album,
album is good.
yeah, it's a great album, and each one of those albums has some absolutely killer songs on it.
We could be here all day as we did a whole episode where Joy literally broke down every episode. And this is one of those weird things that people don't know about me when they look at me, but I'm like, you guys don't understand. The first album I bought at 11 years old on CD was AC/DC.
Yeah.
Like this and Tim's like that checks out because knowing her, that all makes sense. All right, well, this is another one we talked a little bit about, so I'm going to put it at the top. We have a lot more that we haven't really touched on, but I'm going to hit the ones that we've said. Van Halen, AC/DC. Tim's version of Van Halen is Joy's AC/DC. We all know this.
Yeah.
With that being said, Genesis, we have Peter Gabriel. That was hard to say. I don't know where his name became two. And then, of course, Phil Collins. With that being said, I picked the songs for Peter Gabriel of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. A weird one, but I love. And then I picked Invisible Touch for Phil Collins.
Yeah, so Genesis with two different singers are two completely different bands.
Absolutely.
If you look at AC/DC and Van Halen, I mean, the songwriting matures in Van Halen with Sammy, but it's effectively the same thing, really. But with Genesis, with Peter Gabriel, they were very much a progressive rock band. There was not a lot of radio-friendly single-type material during the Peter Gabriel years. Soon as Peter Gabriel leaves and launches an incredibly successful solo career, the Phil Collins era Genesis is massive. It's absolutely massive. It's hit after hit after hit.
But I think it goes into what Tim has said on this podcast many times. We talked about sometimes and we like it because we enjoy it because we're weird people who are into music. But not everybody is into the weird, I guess you could say nerdy side of music. And Peter Gabriel really tried to play into that in some way. Does that make sense, Tim? There's a lot of nuance to it. And if you don't get it, it might not make commercial success, but when you listen to those albums, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is amazing. If you've never heard it, please go listen to it. You should. It deserves that. But Phil Collins brought it into mainstream success.
Absolutely, because Peter Gabriel era Genesis is very much progressive rock. It's something I would maybe Saz would listen to, for example.
Yes, that's a great example. If you've not listened to her episode, you should go back and listen to it. But the thing about it is I don't think that people know it exists outside of people like us. That's what's interesting, Tim, is if I said The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, I don't think if I said that to the general public, they would know what that means.
No, absolutely. Or Selling England by the Pound. The average person would not associate that with Genesis.
But it's such an interesting thing because me and Tim have talked and I wanted to bring this up at the beginning because it's someone we've talked a lot. Go watch Peter Gabriel. His performances live are they're just chef's kiss. But that's not to this. We love Phil Collins, obviously, too. That's a whole different ballgame. But I think Tim is 100% correct. They are a great example of two different bands.
Yeah.
They're not the same band. I don't care what anybody says. So with that being said, we're going to go into the next one, which is not what we talked about, but I know Tim knows. Obviously, I feel like we openly avoid this band, Tim, just out of sure we don't want to speak about them because they're a walking cliche, but it's Journey.
Yes.
So Steve Perry, we've heard of Steve Perry. Obviously, the song everybody would know is Don't Stop Believing.
Yep.
And then Arnel. I don't know how to say his last name. How do you say his last name, Tim? Panini? No, the guy who's singing it.
Arnel Panera. No, Panera is a sandwich company. I don't really.
Pinda. Pineda? Anyway, that's the guy that's over Journey now. I feel bad, but I don't know how to say his last name. And he's the one who's singing on the song After All These Years, which is a great song. It's a great song. I just don't know how to say his last name. Tim, did you look it up? So
Pineda? Arnel Pineda, I believe.
Okay, well, we're going to go with Tim's version because he's actually from England and he speaks the real English. I just do the Southern version. But I will say, After All These Years is a great song. I don't think that, And you know what's the weirdest thing about Journey for me? Is the guy who was on American Idol, who was the bass player, who was yeah, dog, what is Randy, what is his last name, Tim?
Randy Jackson.
The fact that he played bass for them in their later years is the weirdest fact for me. I will tell people that and they will look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, no, he did. He really did.
Yeah. Randy Jackson was an amazing session bass player who played with all manner of people. And this persona that he created for himself on TV of What's Up Dog and all this stuff. I mean, that's completely secondary. He is a bass player of note. I mean, you look on Jackson's albums, no, the band The Jacksons, he played bass on that. Journey. I mean, he is a session
I will say this to people and they look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, no, people don't understand that when you look at like the musicality of the people on that panel for American Idol, it's like he should have been at the top, Tim, but nobody paid any eye to him because he didn't make a big scene about it. But he has a really good ear, obviously. Like, he's been playing for so many, but he played bass for Journey, for those who don't know. Not that this is an episode about that, but that's just one of those weird facts. So with that being said, Tim, I don't really have any. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't really have any feelings about Journey because they're Journey, and they're just there. But I do like the song After All These Years, which was with the second singer.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Arnel Pineda is that he was in a Filipino Journey cover band, and the Journey, the band, found him on YouTube and then approached him to be the singer in Journey because he sounds exactly like Steve Perry.
I mean, to be fair, he really does when you listen to him. And I don't care what anybody says, Steve Perry has a great voice, and not every, okay. So we've openly avoided talking about, like, don't stop believing stuff on this podcast because me and Tim would rather stab ourselves in the eye than hear that song again. But that's not even, am I wrong, Tim? That's not an exaggeration, is it?
It's so overdone at this point. The thing is, it's cross-cultural boundaries where rock fans have known about it for years, but because it's been on Glee and because it's on this and because it's on that.
Family Guy did a version.
Yeah, it's just everywhere. You cannot escape it even if you wanted to.
And it's like almost a walking joke at this point. But with that being said, it is a good song. I understand why it is able to be sung and like works, Tim. I get it. I get why it works.
Yeah.
I get why you get a group of drunk people at a bar, put on Don't Stop Believing, they're going to be screaming their hearts out. We get it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to hear it.
No.
But with that being said, I also think that Steve Perry's voice underrated because a lot of local bands think they can do Journey. Yes, they can do Don't Stop Believing, Tim, but there's other songs in Journey's catalog.
Oh. We
could be here all week if we wanted to get into it. It's actually, he has such a high register, Tim. Am I crazy, or does Steve Perry not get enough credit for how great he can actually sing these songs?
No, to be honest, I think he probably gets an adequate amount of credit. He's known as an amazing...
Or am I just actively ignoring it because I don't want to listen to Journey?
I think that's probably the case.
Because, I mean, Open Arms... When You Love a Woman, After All
Wheel
These
in the
years,
Sky.
It just keeps going. Like, they're all so good.
Loving, Touching, Squeezing. I mean, where else do you want to go with that?
How many Journey songs do you know how to play, Tim? That's the question.
2 or 3 off the top of my head.
I thought it'd be more, to be honest. Do you feel like it's gotten like a little bit of more of like, this is a cliche?
No, it's because most local band singers cannot sing Journey songs. I'm
lucky.
That's
exactly what I'm saying.
I'm lucky that in Nightwings a singer can pull off Journey songs, and we do Loving, Touching, Squeezing.
We love that because what I was getting at is I've heard the bands that think they can sing Journey, Tim. That's what I mean. Maybe Steve Perry, people who are in the music industry are giving us credit, but there is a weird subset of bands in Southwest Virginia where me and Tim live who think they can sing Journey, and it's just not great.
Yeah, a few bands ago, no bands mentioned Whiskey River.
Do you know
that we tried to do Don't Stop Believing, and we had to drop it like 5 steps, and it sounded terrible.
The other one is Boston.
Oh yeah, Boston, exactly the same.
It's the same. They all think they could do it, Tim, and it's like, do you not realize how high that song really is?
There only was one Brad Delp, and he was an amazing singer.
All right, so yes, I agree with Tim. All right, here's another band that Tim will be familiar with, but we haven't really talked about. I mean, Tim has brought up both these artists a little bit, but I don't feel like we've had a lot of conversation about them. This is Black Sabbath. Of course, the original singer was Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
The song I picked was Paranoid, and then we have Ronnie James Dio, and the song I picked was Heaven and Hell. I think that they're both great, to be completely transparent with you, Tim. I don't really have a problem with either of them. I think that Dio brought more of a vocal style, whereas Ozzy was just kind of giving into that like metal sound, I guess, and playing into like a caricature, for lack of a better. But from what I gather, that is his persona, so it's really hard for me to figure out. But those are the songs I picked. What do you think, Tim? Black Sabbath is one of those bands that people go back and forth about.
Absolutely. So the Dio era of Black Sabbath, a lot of people actually prefer it to the Ozzy era. I think it's a lot more musically interesting, especially as you get deeper into the
I
catalog.
think he had more of a better vocal style.
Yeah, Ozzy has a very unique vocal style, which is mostly due to him double tracking his vocals.
It's mostly him screaming.
Yeah, I mean, I could be controversial with this, but Ozzy probably isn't a great singer, but
No, you're not controversial. He's screaming.
But he is a good singer for Black Sabbath, and he has a very unique voice. Now, the other thing you have to consider with Black Sabbath, and I've just pulled it up, there was not just two singers in Black Sabbath.
Now, of course, the nerdiest man in the world has to bring me though. Continue, Tim. I say that sarcastically. I love him because I love this. Continue.
Yeah, there have been 10 singers in Black Sabbath. You have Ozzy Osbourne, David Donato, Ron Keel, Dave Walker, Ray Gillan, Rob Halford.
Jesus.
Tony Martin.
I've heard these names.
Yeah, Tony Martin, Glenn Hughes, and then Ronnie James Dio, and then Ian Gillan, who was also the singer for Deep Purple. So the thing is with Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi, the guitar player, owns the name. It's really his band.
It's really interesting how that works, though. He's smart to have marketed it the way he did, or patented it, I guess is a better way of saying it.
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of people, especially with the way that US rock radio treats Black Sabbath, Ozzy is the one and only singer, and then maybe a little bit of Dio in there as well.
So from my perspective, it's American rock radio. So the reason I picked this, and Tim's not wrong, because we've talked about this. There's a lot of bands that have had 74 members, right, Tim? Yeah. That's not a new thing. The reason I picked these out were the ones that I think made it its mainstream success. Does that make sense? I picked the two artists that I knew were mainstream success.
Absolutely. And even someone who knows a little bit about rock music would probably know these two eras. They wouldn't know about Ian Gillan. They wouldn't know about Glenn Hughes. They wouldn't know about...
I've heard you talk about Ian before, Tim, but I wouldn't know that. To be completely frank with you guys, Tim has taught me so much about music that you would not even realize. There are names now that I recognize that I would have recognized before we did this podcast, Tim. I wouldn't have. And I feel like I have a little bit more knowledge than the average person. Does that make sense? And I feel I've probably done the same for Tim, but...
Joy, I don't like films. I don't watch a lot of TV apart from wrestling. And this is what I know about.
It's so cute, though. Because I'm always oh, God, when I do the episode, Tim's probably going to be well, Joy, there's also 74 things you didn't take into account. Of course there is. I mean, to be fair, y'all, so if you listen to last week's episode, when I tried to kill Mr. Young, I sent Tim a screenshot of me. I put on my music that I listen to when I go to sleep, and it popped up, and I was like, sorry, I tried to kill you, sir.
As we said, Paul Young is alive and well. I'm pleased to report.
And he could do a really good version Forever Young in spite of me. Who knows? All right. So this is controversial because, as Tim has stated, none of this is black and white. 74 people. I already know he's going to correct me on this, but we're going to talk about multiple people in this band who have been the singers, quote unquote. We're going to go with Fleetwood Mac. So the original singer was technically Peter Green.
Yep.
The song I picked was Albatross. Now, we have Lindsey Buckingham. We have Stevie Nicks. They kind of both sang lead at some point. Stevie Nicks is, I think, the one that people know visually, right? Her spinning around physically. So for Peter Green, I picked Albatross as a song. But for Stevie Nicks, I picked Go Your Own Way.
Absolutely. And of course, Christine McVie sang in that band. I mean... There's been so many people through that band.
It's hard to pick that one.
I don't think Mick Fleetwood ever sang any songs. I don't think John McVie ever sang any songs. But certainly all the people who played guitar, all the people who played keyboards, all the people who sort of fronted it at some point have sang songs. So it is weaved through. It's one of those unique bands where you don't have a defined lead singer. So yes, you can say Stevie Nicks sort of but everyone has taken a lead
But I
vocal.
think Lindsey Buckingham probably sang just as much as Stevie Nicks. I think Stevie Nicks did a good job of marketing herself, Tim. Is that bad? Am I wrong to say that, or does that make me sound like a bad person? But I think that was part of it. She looked good on stage, so it was great to have her in the front. But I don't think she was, well, I know she wasn't, Tim. Like, if you go back and listen to music, she wasn't always the one singing lead.
No, but I mean, she has that iconic look on stage, and she's such a cultural icon. When if you were thinking of the singer from Fleetwood Mac, you probably would think of Stevie Nicks.
But that is later because I don't know how many. It is an interesting thing. So me and Tim have talked about on this podcast how Fleetwood Mac has gotten a resurgence of people really interested in them. And we're not going to be the ones who are like, oh my God, I hate that people like them. No, we love it. Like, we love to see people interested in that music. And we would never be the kind of people who would be like, try to like, I hate, and actually Metallica was the band that I absolutely adored when they said this. So Metallica got a resurgence after that TV show with the kids and the music. It doesn't matter. There was on
Stranger
Netflix.
Things.
Yes. And they were like, we don't care. Like, we're just happy people like our music.
Yeah.
And that's not the way they said it. But Tim, you remember when they released that statement? They were just like, it's fine. Like, we love this.
Yeah.
Like, let them live. And that's how I feel about this. So with that being said, it's okay who your favorite Fleetwood Mac is. And I really do think that they've gotten a weird resurgence because of things like social media and different things like that. Like, if I asked someone who Peter Green, or I think his real name was Peter Greenbaum. I think he had like a full last name.
Peter Green is his stage name.
Yes. It's an English guy who died in, I think, 2020. Don't come for me, and if he didn't, he's dead, right, Tim?
He is. He had a number of mental health struggles through the years. He did a lot of He did a lot of drugs early on in his career, and it sort of damaged his mental health severely.
After Mr. Young, Paul Young.
No, you are safe with the fact that sadly Peter Green is no longer with us.
That sounds really bad that I'm safe with that fact. But I did think he passed away. But I mean, he did he did a few songs. Like Albatross, I think, is one of the biggest ones that you would know, Man of the World. He did, and Tim taught me this on another episode, Black Magic Woman. Didn't know that was his song.
Yep.
Did not know that, y'all. Tim taught me that one. But he has an interesting vibrato. He's emotionally expressive. Very nice look. But when it comes to Fleetwood Mac, I just don't think people know about him.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad in some way because he was important. Maybe our podcast is telling people that Tim is just promoting this to people who didn't know that.
I mean that's true.
But to be fair, he was only a blip in the system. Now, my question for you, Tim, is if you had to pick, and I thought about this long and hard, if we had to pick one Fleetwood Mac song to go with us on a desert island, what song would you pick?
Probably Rihanna.
Really? I don't know what I thought. Okay, I need to think because I don't actually know my answer. It's a hard question, Tim. How did you know that so quickly?
Because it's a Fleetwood Mac song for me, which is iconic, and I like it.
I think it's either The Chain or Go Your Own Way for B.
Yeah,
I'm a rumors girl. I know it's cliche. I get it.
I mean, they're both great, but I would say probably Rihanna.
But that, listen to the wind blow, like that breakdown, Tim.
Yeah, but it makes me think of UK Formula One TV shows, which is something I have no interest in.
Okay, well, that's a personal problem we can get into later. All right. With that being said, the next band we're going to talk about is a band that Tim's familiar with. It's controversial. There probably is another singer somewhere in there, but these are the two most people would know. Alice in Chains, Lane Stanley, and William Duvall. Are you familiar with Alice in Chains, Tim?
I am indeed. Man in the Box is a great song. The guitar player is Jerry Cantrell, and he plays a G&L Legacy guitar.
Of course. So that was the song I picked for Lane Stanley. And then for Wonderful, I picked Check My Brain. I feel like Alice in Chains is one of those bands, though, that everything they've done is incredibly good, but they fly under the radar more than you should. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you. Have you ever played any of their music, Tim?
I think I may have played Man in the Box. The problem with it is that, for a lot of people, they are a one-hit wonder of Man in the Box. and I don't think they crossed enough into the mainstream. They toured with Van Halen, supported Van Halen in the 90s, and they had MTV videos out and stuff like that. But I think their music is a little too dark and brooding for mainstream success. I mean,
I
Jerry
think
Cantrell, the
so.
guitar player, certainly is well respected in guitar circles. And I mean, he's had a reasonably successful solo career. It's in so much as that back in the early 2000s, Hannah went to see Nickelback at the House of Blues
Oh
in Myrtle
my.
Beach, and Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains was the support act.
I agree. I mean, poor Hannah. Like, did she do it by her own accord with someone pushing her?
No, they used to go to Myrtle Beach every year, and they had a tradition that whatever was playing at the House of Blues, they would go and see it. She went to see a rap concert by Mystical one time, and also she went to see a Nickelback. It was just like a weird tradition her and her friends had.
Oh, well, I appreciate that she was dedicated to it, but I don't know. I might have said that one out. Or I might have taken a lot of drinks at the bar before I had to go to the concert, but that's a debate for another time. What's interesting about Alice in Chains, though, is they're very much in the 1990s, like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden kind of thing. And from what I've gathered and what I've read about them is they did garner success in that area, but it's like they never really pushed past that. Does that make sense, Tim?
Yeah, they were lumped in with the grunge bands, and as I said, their sound was a little dark and brooding and not quite as accessible as some of the songs that like Soundgarden would have, for example.
Yeah, you're probably right. What it comes down to is they just didn't have that commercial sound.
Absolutely.
Well, with that being said, we're going another band that doesn't have that commercial sound, but fits in this. And I do know Tim knows this band. This is Stone Temple Pilots. So we
Hmm.
have Scott Lehman, which the song I picked was Push.
Yep.
And then we have Jeff Gutt. And the other song I picked was Meadows. So I do think that they were always a band that was always trying to recapture their former glory. I'm
Absolutely,
kind of
because
always looking for that.
for me, STP, you have to have Scott Weiland as the singer in it.
I think so.
And, they've continued on after we lost Scott with the singer that you mentioned, but I don't think they'll ever have the same glory that they had with him. Now, I did actually see Scott Weiland, I think it's Weiland,
Yes,
perform
Wyland.
with Velvet Revolver. And Velvet
Hmm.
Revolver was a supergroup of sorts where it was members of Guns N' Roses, Slash, and Duff, and Matt Sorum, who was a later drummer in Guns N' Roses during the Appetite for Destruction era. And I think the other guitar player was Dave Kushner. But you had Scott Weiland as the singer. And they had a few albums out. And they performed at the Aladdin, as it was in Vegas, which is now the Planet Hollywood Hotel. And
Yeah,
then I saw them perform there, and it was just cool to see Slash. In all honesty, it was fantastic. But
of
I mean, that was
course.
good, and they played some STP songs in their set, which was kind of cool. But I don't think you can have an STP without Scott Weiland.
I kind of agree with him on that. Now, I will say for me, the moment that I know about Stone Temple Pilots is the album Purple. And I think that that makes sense. It was around like what mid early 90s. And Purple
Hmm.
is the album I know. You got Interstate Love, Vaseline, Unglued is another one. Like those pop up on my thing, and those were early 1990 esque artists, and they're under Scott Weiland. Jeff Gutt is the other guy. I don't know much about him. I picked this on Meadow. The only reason I picked it is because it's the only one I knew. Just gonna
Yeah,
tell you that, guys. I don't know anything else from him. But they're an interesting band, and I do think they're one that like I do like pull out occasionally and want to listen to,
hmm
but. Outside of Purple and maybe the album Core, I don't know much about them.
yeah. I mean, for me, Core is probably the album that I would go to. And I mean, my favorite track of theirs is that Dead and Bloated, where it's I am.
It is a cool breakdown. Like it's got like
Yeah.
a cool bass line, a cool breakdown. I think they have a cool sound, and I mean, obviously, they're not pushing their own equipment, Tim, so they're doing better than us. But
No,
what
like
is it
I
we
play, I
said?
played a gig last night in Eggleston Springs Campground, which is about 30 minutes from here. It's like heading up towards West Virginia, like Giles, that kind of way.
Yeah, it makes
Incredibly nice
sense.
people, lovely stage, nice outdoor venue. But it's like campground where some people live there some of the year, some people like come in for the summer and things like that. Couldn't have been nicer. Really couldn't have been nicer. It was kind of cool when the sun came down. Very nice gig. Everyone in the band played great. We had a good time. However, I had to haul all my own equipment there, set it up, and at the end of the night, tear it all down and pack it up, and then help the drummer with his drum kit. And I just feel I'd rather not be doing that at this point.
I mean, I understand. I don't know who we call, but we'll call someone soon for you, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, said I never had any grand visions of great success. I just wish someone would do that stuff at this point.
I mean, you're probably not wrong. That's probably what 70% of becoming famous is just having other people do the things you don't want to do for you.
Yeah, I've been playing in bands for probably 37 years now at this point. And maybe the last 20 of those have been of the opinion I'd rather not be hauling this stuff around.
Fair enough. All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to segue into a band that I have an interesting history with that I've talked about on this podcast, but I don't know a whole lot of. Tim knows more about this band, and our Australian fans will know more about this band. It's INXS. And I have to talk about that stupid reality TV show they had. We'll get into that in a minute. But, of course, the original singer was Mike, how do you say his name?
Michael Hutchence.
Yeah, what Tim said. Need You Tonight, and then JD Fortune, which I picked the song Pretty Vegas, and I'm being completely transparent with you. That's the only song I know that he sang.
Yeah, I don't know whether they went on to continued success with that new singer, because what happened, of course, was Michael Hutchence passed away in a, kind of rock starry kind of way. Very, very sad, incredibly sad. And they decided to do a reality TV show to find a new singer. And then, of course, they released an album and stuff, but I don't know how long it continued on after that.
So, and for those who don't know this, and I find this very interesting because we have a listener who we specifically know is from Australia, and she talked to us about the INXS thing and how weird it is from an American perspective, how the INXS thing works. It's a band that I know. So for INXS, I picked the song Need You Tonight because that's probably their number one song, right?
Yeah.
Or What You Need, or Never Tear Us Apart. I do know the song Suicide Blonde. That's one I know. And then for the JD Fortune guy, I picked the song Pretty Vegas because it's the only song I knew. And they have won like a lot of Australian recording industry things. And from what I have gathered is in Australia, INXS is not a one-hit wonder. But outside of Australia, and I mean, Tim has the perspective of not always being in America. I don't know that they were a big mainstream success outside of Australia. They just had like 2 or 3 songs at best.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking up the Wikipedia page. Apparently, they're not touring. They gave up touring. The JD Fortune era actually finished, I think it said 2011. Yeah, 2005 to 2011 was the last of JD Fortune. Now, in the UK, they were very big. The album Kick was absolutely huge, and then they had a number of hits after that. It was very, very popular. But again, I don't know how popular they were here.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. For them, they were a band that was like, What You Need, Need You Tonight, Never Tear Us Apart, maybe Suicide Blonde, maybe, Tim. And that's stretching. That's just for me because I Googled them and looked them up past what you heard on the radio, right? But they were more known for that reality TV show that had Dave. What is that guy's name? Who was the Dave? Not Dave Grohl, but Dave Navarro.
Dave Navarro.
He was the one who was like the MC on the show, right?
Okay.
And that's what stood out to me is he's a very distinct looking person. If you've ever seen him, he's got the makeup and the hair, and like he looks like a band. Like he looks like someone who's like an 80s rock band. Like he gave that vibe.
Yeah, he was with Carmen Electra for a while. I think it's fair to say he had more makeup and product in his hair than Carmen Electra ever did.
So my point being is Tim's correct, and he played a part on that reality TV show, right, Tim? To give 80s hair band to the extreme. Though, like, he's not exactly. I mean, he was a good musician, but he's not exactly known for being like the most best musician. But that's all I remember is him on there with like he always had that goatee and he had the makeup and he had the hair and he always had the straight, like very intense hair, and he was always like judging all these people. Of course, Red Hot Chili Peppers, if people don't know, were David Navarro is from. And I'm not a huge Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then he was also a member of Jane's Addiction, I think.
Yeah, I
at
think
some
he's
point.
more famous as a member of Jane's Addiction. His tenure in the Chili Peppers was actually pretty short-lived. And,
Okay,
and,
well,
it, and it was a very odd fit because he fits Jane's Addiction. He's actually a really, really good guitar player.
that's what I've heard is he's quite good, but he has a very big look. And I think that's the only reason they made him the MC on this show, Tim. Though, to be completely transparent with you, is reality TV. And I have no clue who won. And the person who won for the lead singer of INXS did not go. Was it the Pretty Vegas dude? Is that who won?
I think so, yes. I mean, as I said, I've never really looked into INXS past Michael Hutchence.
Let's do a Google because I don't actually remember. I remember, y'all. I remember as a young American in the 2000s watching this reality TV show in the height of American Idol. And INXS was a band that everybody in America knew for one song. And that was it.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
you had
like I
Dave
said
Navarro.
to you, you're what you need in the world of INXS mostly is the album Kick, which is superb.
All right, hold on. Let's look this up. Okay, so the show was called Rockstar in Excess. It was a reality TV show where 15 contestants competed to be the lead vocalist for the Australian rock band In Excess. Here we go. Who won though? The three contestants were the finale: Meg something, Mari Casey, and JD Fortune. Okay, Fortune was considered by many the underdog. Got it. JD Fortune. Oh, Pretty Vegas is the name of the song. The guy's name is JD Fortune. Okay, that's right. So yes, the guy I was saying, JD Fortune, who wrote the Pretty Vegas song, is the winner. Well, I only know one song from him, Tim, so I don't know how much he was a winner.
There we go.
I only heard this one song from him once, but anyway, that's such an interesting band though, because what our friends from Australia have touched us, they act like I was crazy when I was just like, I don't really know that much about them.
No, I mean, as I said, they certainly were big in the UK.
I mean, fair enough. All right. Well, we'll debate American music for the next 24 years because it's a weird space. With that being said, the band I'm going to pick is a completely 360. We're going with the Temptations. So the original singer of the Temptations was David Ruffin. The song I picked was My Girl. And then the later singer, which the Temptations are one of those bands that had 74 members.
Yeah.
We all know this. But these are lead singers that actually were known as being part of the band, I guess, not just like a stage singer. I picked Dennis Edwards, and the song was Papa Was a Rolling Stone. So My Girl and Papa Was a Rolling Stones were big hits for them, and that's how I narrowed this down.
Yeah, I think the Temptations are still touring as the Temptations, but don't have any original members.
Let's say, are any of them still alive, Tim?
I don't think so, because I mean, all those chaps would be 90 plus years old at this point, but I'm sure you can probably go to some kind of casino somewhere and see the Temptations and it doesn't contain a single original member.
I will say, though, when you look at the Temptations and you take them from My Girl, which is a song that everybody knows, has been done 1,000 times. You got My Guy, My This, right? You know, Shangri-La's doing their version and all this stuff. And then we fast forward to Papa Was a Rolling Stone. There is a distinct difference in the sound that's coming out of them as a band. Like Papa Was a Rolling Stone was intense. It's almost like a, I don't even know, it's almost giving like a psychedelic kind of like 60s sound that they didn't have when they were singing something like My Girl. So it's a very interesting, like, dichotomy between the two people singing lead. Now, the Temptations is a very interesting, broad band that, like we've said, there's 47 members and they've done a lot of stuff. But I do think that does show, like, that changeover from, like, I hate to say this, like, the 1950s, 1960s into when you've got things like the Beatles and the Who dominating what's going on mainstream media, then you get Papa Was a Rolling Stone.
Yeah, Papa Was a Rolling Stone is such a good song. And like the studio version, the album version, should I say, of the studio version, it's like 11 minutes long or something. It is amazing.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever played any of the Temptations music, Tim, when you're doing music?
Actually, I might have played My Girl, I think.
That is you know what? That is a disservice. That is one thing. I'm going to stand on this hill, Tim, and you can shoot me down in a minute. Why don't y'all, I feel like some of these like local bands in our area, this is very nuanced. And if you don't live in Southwest Virginia, just skip ahead 10 seconds because you're not going to care what I'm about to say. Motown gets overlooked.
And you know why? It's because most local bands don't have killer background vocals.
You're right, because the Temptations had like 5 people singing.
Yeah, and they're all amazing singers.
Wow. Wow, you just put me right in my place, Tim. It is a problem, though. And what's good is when you get like the chairman of the board. I'm sure you've seen the chairman of the board that plays around here a little bit and does like. So my parents are big on going to like the local Motown and like those bands that do that. And Tim's right; they always have like 3 people singing.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Wow.
can't pull off Temptations music or other similar Motown music without amazing harmony backing
And
vocals.
everybody has to be good. It can't just be one person.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. We can't even get one good singer half the time. What am I talking about? And I'm sorry to insult, but that is one thing, Tim. Tim will tell you, I will tell you, and I don't think it's a Southwest Virginia thing. I think it's an international issue. You have like for every 5 local bands, one of them has a good singer.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been blessed that the last band I was in had a really, really good singer, and the current band I have has an amazing singer.
Woo!
But you don't always get that.
The other thing is it's not even just being a good singer; it's knowing your limitations, Tim. Because I'm going to tell you right now, guys, I know what I can and can't sing. I've talked about this on this podcast. Don't put a heart song on. I'm going to run right out the door. I'm going to tell you, I'm never singing heart. No one should ever sing heart. Do you know what I'm saying? Tim was about Steve Perry earlier is a great example. And everybody, or Tim was talking Boston's a great example.
Yeah.
No one should be singing that. You just
No.
shouldn't be singing it. We should all know what our limitations are. And I think in local bands, they don't always do that.
No.
Also, I will say though, there was one local. What's that one band, Tim, that everybody knows locally, and he does a really good version of Prince. I've talked to you about this, and you mentioned you knew the name. Like they were like a known band in this area.
What, The Works?
Yes. If you're local to us, then it's WRX.
WORX.
Yes, sorry, I forgot though.
Yeah,
But-
they're basically a cover band like every other cover band, but they have such a great reputation. They've been going for 20 plus years. They command a large audience, and people seem to love the works. And then they've had several members. My understanding is really it's the keyboard players band, sort of. They've cycled through a bunch of
Yes.
drummers, and they've cycled through a bunch of
I've seen him play with 2 different drummers.
yeah. But they're out there most weekends getting it done, and they're bringing in a crowd.
What's interesting though is that the lead singer is a showman. That's what it is.
Yeah, he's great. I've actually performed with him a few times at various gigs and
sorry.
open mics and stuff. Yeah, he's a really good he's a good front man for that band.
But I think he knows what works for him, Tim, and he doesn't try to go outside of what doesn't work for him. And that's an important factor of what I'm saying. Do you know what I mean, Tim? Like, I think he knows what works for him and what doesn't. And I've never seen him try to go outside of that.
Yeah.
The one time I saw them, the drummer was playing on like one of those electric drum sets, which is kind of interesting. Which I don't blame him because hauling up a drum set and putting it up is a pain. Like Ted was just saying, he doesn't even push his own amp out. Like I get it. But he did a version of the Humpty Dance when I watched him. That was very interesting.
Well, I will say one thing about electric drums. So they're a band like a lot of bands that try and have zero noise on stage because it's easier to mix, especially when everyone has in-ear monitoring. So
That makes sense.
you don't want a noisy drummer. Electronic drum kits have got to the point where it feels more like real drums, and the samples sound really good. So
It did. It sounded great when I heard it.
yeah. So from keeping stage volume down and making it much easier to mix, a lot of engineers like electronic drums. Of course, drummers don't like electronic drums, but it is what it is.
I get it, though. I also was just thinking about, from my perspective, from the few years that I was a drummer, you have your bass drum, you have your hi-hat, you have to sit there, you have to set it all up, right, Tim? Like, physically, breaking down and setting up a drum set's a pain. I don't care what anybody says, it is. And then you always, you have to be careful about the way you, literally carry them from set to set because they can easily get punctured and different things like that. It's a pain. So I kind of got it.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Tim, I didn't mean to cut you off. But what was funny is, so for those who don't know what the Humpty Dance is, go look it up. But the last time I saw the works on stage, it was at that concert I told you about, Tim, at that Silo and Reiner. We've talked about it. I don't remember their name.
Right? Yeah, Rising Silo.
That was the one that had the kerosene heater in the middle of all the drunk people in a bar. And I thought we were all going to die. I mean, I'm sorry, Tim. Who puts a kerosene heater in the middle of a bunch of drunk people in a brewery? In a barn. A wooded barn. There's no one going to talk about. That logistically just seems stupid.
Absolutely.
I don't know who's over that, but I will say until the day I die that was a dumb idea. But they are a really good band. So if anyone's close to us and has in the works, I would say go see them. I think they're worth it. What do you think, Tim? Do you think the guys who are in it are decent people? Should we be promoting them?
As far as I know, they are.
Good. Okay. Tim's like, don't put me on the spot, Julie. I don't know enough about them to be able to answer that question. All right. Well, the next one is a band we have talked about. We've talked a little bit about this, and I think me and Tim have made comments about what we think. It's Pink Floyd. Of course, you have Sid Barrett and then David Gilmour.
Yes. Of course, Sid Barrett was at the very beginning of the band. He was seen as the Pink Floyd himself, but he had, once again, mental health concerns made much worse by his use of mind-bending drugs. Yeah. And David Gilmour was brought in, and then, of course, they've had huge commercial success in the David Gilmour era. A lot of people do like the early Sid Barrett stuff, though it does tend to be a little progressive in nature, a little bit out there. The stuff under David Gilmour is obviously a lot more accessible. I would say there's a whole load of people who like Pink Floyd who have no idea who Sid Barrett is.
So I have a very distinct understanding of this because I have spoke very heavily on this podcast that my husband is a huge Pink Floyd lover. We own all the albums. He makes me listen to it on repeat. It makes me want to stab myself in the eye sometimes because some of it is just so over the top ridiculous.
Yes.
With that being said, Charlie would probably say Sid. So I picked the Arnold Line song. That was the first one I picked. And then for David Gilmour, obviously I picked Comfortably Numb, which I understand is the most everybody's song. We know that, right? Everybody would know that. I would controversially say I prefer David over Sid. Don't come for me, internet. I know this is controversial. Tim's right. There are diehard fans who will tell you that Sid Barrett is the lead singer of Pink Floyd. I don't agree. I think I think that he had great artistic choices. But if you're going to look at commercial success and long string things that people want to actually hear, I think you got to go with David.
Yeah, well, absolutely, 100%.
Did you hear that part of the end that people actually want to hear, Tim? I just want you to know I said that. But people actually want to hear. I have very strong feelings about this because you guys do not understand. Charlie loves Pink Floyd and will just play it on repeat. And it's great. Sort of.
Everything should be in moderation. I don't listen to Queen all day, every day. I listen to it very occasionally and enjoy it. You don't want to burn it out.
It's not that. No, it just sounds like they're on drugs a lot. And it feels like I'm listening to sonic experiments or philosophical lyrics, you know what I mean, Tim, on repeat. I'm like, it's great, but I can only hear Wish You Were Here so many times.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, Joy, you've probably got time for about one more.
All right, I'm going to pick one that we have talked about, but not too much. And I'm going to do it controversially because this guy has my last name. We're going to talk about The Doors. The laser singer was Jim Morrison. Now, I know this controversially is not a singer people talk about with this, but he was the singer that they kind of put in front of the band. It's Ray Manzarek. I don't know how to say his last name. Obviously, they were more famous, and Jim Morrison, they tried to replace him after he passed away, but I just never really caught on.
Yeah, I think it was called the 21st Century Doors?
Yes, it was. It absolutely was. I picked the song for Jim Morrison, Light My Fire, because who doesn't like that song? Yeah. And then the one I picked for the Red Guy was Tightrope Ride. I'm going to be completely transparent with you guys. That's the only song I knew.
Yeah, now as I've said to you before, I'm not a Doors fan, really. I like some of the hits, but certainly before that Doors film came out, I'd never even heard of them.
Do you feel like they're more popular in America than they were in the UK?
I think so, 100%.
Because for me, if I could Riders on the Storm, man, or like LA Woman, or like People Are Strange.
Like Light My Fire and stuff like that. But I think they were more of a cultural icon in the US than they ever were in the UK. But as I said, that film came out and I was like, who's this group? I've never heard of them.
To be fair, I mean, they were an American rock band that came out of LA. Riders on the Storm, though, the weird, like, I mean, it's a weird song, Tim. All their music is kind of weird in their own right, kind of like Pink Floyd, right? But Charlie doesn't make me listen to the Doors. Don't tell Charles about the Doors, everybody. It'll be ruined. I'll have to listen to Riders on the Storm for the next 6 weeks. Also, the other one that I can't listen to anymore, and it's funny because Queen, what is the album that did Tim for the guy that you like, that's like the superhero dude? What is the name?
Flash Gordon.
Yes. The Flash Gordon album Charlie's made me listen to many times. And we're listening to it. And then one day I went, you do know this is Queen, right? And there was just a weird silence in the house. He was like, oh. And I wrote Tim and was like, well, Charlie's made me listen to the Flash Gordon album for the last 6 years and didn't know this is Queen. And then Tim was like, that sounds right. But anyway, no one tell Charles about the Doors because it'll be up there.
It'll be my secret.
So for those who don't know, Joy's last name is Morrison. She did not change her name when she got married. And my father's name is Jim Morrison.
Yay!
So he will not be the guy. There's also a lot of jokes about if Jim Morrison is still alive, and apparently he's still alive with my father. So
there we are.
Oh, Ray was so I didn't say this, but the guy who became the lead singer was the keyboardist back in the day.
Yeah.
Just
Ray Manzarek, I believe the guy's name.
Yes, but I didn't know how to say it because I'm Joy and I can't speak words. So take it with a grain of salt. I see words and I know what they say on the screen, Tim, but I can't physically make them work in my mouth.
Allow me to be your mouthpiece, Joy.
I do, because I'll be like, Tim, how do I say this? Tim's like this. I'm like, sounds great. Let's go with it. Like, Tim could literally give me the worst advice ever. And I'd be like, well, he's British. He knows English. Sounds right. We're going to go with it. I would never know. All right. Well, with that being said, what would you like to leave the people with?
I just want to say be kind to everyone that you meet.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.